And in today's tutorial, we'll be moving towards the more business end of scratching with flare techniques, and this one is called the one-click flare. This is a variation of the original flare technique, which we'll cover in another tutorial, but because it has fewer steps in it, it's a good place to start. The one-click flare sounds like this. And when you put a little spice to it, you can make it sound like this. Good people, what is up? Hello and how's it? I'm DJ Shameless, if we haven't met yet, and if we have, welcome back to the channel. So with the flare technique, the basic concept behind it is that you start with the fader open and you end with the fader open. So every time the crossfader moves from an open to a closed position back to an open position, it creates a clicking sound, and the term one click refers to the number of times that the fader will move. You might also hear some DJs use the term orbit when it comes to the flare techniques, and that just means to complete the scratch you do it in a forward and a reverse motion. With most of the tutorials up till now, we've used the crossfader to cut a sample in and out, and now with the flare techniques we're going to start slicing space into a sample. This technique opened up a whole new way of scratching and was invented by DJ Flare when he was trying to speed up his transformer scratches, and later on variations were discovered by the likes of DJ Qubit and crew. Okay, let me break down the scratch so that it's easy to understand. Once you get comfortable with the technique behind it, we'll move on to an intermediate phase and then a more advanced level. With all the flare scratches, one thing you have to take into account is that the fader starts in an open position, which is very similar to how the chirp scratch starts. Now there's a few ways that I can explain how the one-click flare works. The point is to get as many sounds as possible with moving the fader the least amount of times. We are going to achieve 2 sounds with 1 fader movement. So we'll be moving the fader from an on position to a closed position and back to an on position. That'll effectively give us 1 movement of the crossfader, and we'll split the sample into 2 on the forward movement. So I'll divide the explanation into 2 parts. First part being the forward movement and the second part being the backward movement. Let's start with the forward movement, and coincidentally it's the same first movement of the chirp as well. And if you haven't seen the chirp scratch tutorial yet, I'll link it at the end of this video. So as the sample comes in from the 12 o'clock position, we're going to move it to about the 2 o'clock position and move the fader from an open position to a closed position. Once you get to that position, what you want to do is continue the forward motion of the sample to about the 4 o'clock position and then open the fader from the closed position to the open position. One more time, start with the fader open. As the sound comes in, you turn the fader off. When you get to that position, continue the forward motion and then open the crossfader. So if I speed it up a little bit and do it in one smooth motion, this is what it would look like. So we start again with the open position, line your sample up to the beginning. One more time for the people at the back. So effectively what we're doing with the flare is we are cutting a space into the sample to split it into 2 equal halves. This is the halfway position of the one-click flare orbit. So in order for us to get back to the 12 o'clock position, we got to do the same movement as the forward but in reverse. So we're starting at 4 o'clock. We move the sample from the 4 o'clock position to about the 2 o'clock position, move the fader from an open position to the closed position. Once we get to that position, we pull the sample back to the 12 o'clock position and then open the fader. Let's do that a few more times in a smoother motion on the sample. So effectively again, what we're doing is the reverse motion of the forward motion, where you're taking the sample and you are slicing a space in between it to create two sounds on the reverse motion. Now if we combine the forward movements and the backward movements in one smooth motion, you'll get 4 individual sounds, 2 forward and then 2 on the reverse. Once we've got the one-click flare in a smooth motion forward and back, what we can do is start slowing down and speeding up the sample movement to create different textures or tones within the one-click flare. One variation that you can try is alternating from a faster record movement to a slower record movement. By that I mean you do the first one-click flare orbit fast and the second one-click flare slow. Okay, let's get a few patterns going on a metronome. Now with the advanced one-click flare orbits, you can start adding the previously learned scratches. For example, you can do a 2-click transformer on the way forward and a 1-click flare on the reverse. Another example would be to combine a few baby scratches and then do a few one-click flare orbits. Once you get comfortable with your hand control on the one-click flares, you can try and speed them up even faster and then also add a few other previously learned scratches. Let's do a few examples on a metronome. As always, once you get comfortable with this technique, don't forget to add your own flavor to it by combining it with other scratches and making up your own patterns. Next up in the tutorial series, we'll be covering the 2-click flare. So if you want to learn more about that, please subscribe to the channel so you get notified first. And thanks to all the new subscribers to the channel, you guys are much appreciated. It really helps the channel a lot. And happy scratching and peace.